When this man dies, the world will hold its breath, not because people will mourn him, but because nobody knows what happens next. Will his son seize power and create a dynasty? Will the Revolutionary Guard stage a military coup? Will millions of Iranians pour into the streets demanding freedom? Will regional powers intervene? Intelligence agencies have been wargaming this moment for years, because when Iran's supreme leader dies, the entire Middle East could explode. This isn't some distant future. Khamenei is 85. He's had cancer surgery. He looks frailer every appearance. His death could happen tomorrow. And when it does, here's what might happen next. Act 1. The official PLA unofficially. Here's how it's supposed to work. They vote. They select the new supreme leader. Simple, right? Except, it's never been tested. The first, Ayatollah Khomeini, handpicked Khamenei before dying. This time? And the system that's supposed to choose? It's rigged. The Guardian Council, controlled by Khamenei, decides who can run for the Assembly of Experts. So the Assembly is already full of Khamenei. Loyalists. But loyal to whom after he's dead? The obvious successor was Ebrahim Raisi, hardline cleric, former president. Khamenei clearly favored him, and in May 2024, Raisi's helicopter crashed into a mountain in northern Iran. He's dead? The succession plan? Dead with him. Now it's chaos, each claiming they represent the revolution's true path, and in reality, the Assembly of Experts might not decide anything. Because the real power in Iran isn't the clerics anymore. Revolutionary Guard soldiers, tanks, missiles. 2. Scenario 1. The military TAKEOVR. Revolutionary Guard doesn't just defend Iran. It controls 40% of the economy. It runs businesses, construction companies, smuggling networks. Supreme leader who might negotiate with the West or liberalize the economy. Scenario visualization. Here's how it happens. Khamenei dies. The Assembly of Experts starts meeting to choose a successor. There's disagreement. When it comes back on, a general is speaking. To protect the revolution and ensure stability, the armed forces have assumed temporary authority. We will restore order and then return power to civilian leadership. That last part? A lie. Once the IRGC takes power, why would they give it back? What happened in Egypt? After the Arab Spring chaos, the military took over temporarily. General Sisi is still president. That was 2013. Iran could become Egypt with nuclear weapons. What this means for Iranians? More repression. The IRGC is even more brutal than the clerics. More aggressive Iran. The IRGC funds Hezbollah, Houthis, Iraqi militias. A military-run Iran would double down on regional conflicts. For the world, an openly military dictatorship with ballistic missiles and near-nuclear capability. No more pretending to be an Islamic republic. Just guns and power? Likelihood? 40%. The IRGC has the weapons and organization. But they'd face massive protests and international isolation. But there's another scenario. One that keeps the system intact. Act 3. Scenario 2. The Dionist Wahid Mojtaba Khamenei. Mid-level cleric. And possibly the next supreme leader. Wait, isn't Iran supposed to be a theocratic republic, not a monarchy? Yes, but that hasn't stopped them before. Mojtaba isn't officially powerful. He holds no major government position. But everyone in Tehran knows he's his father's gatekeeper. Want access to the supreme leader? Given control of certain security operations. Built relationships with IRGC commanders. Accumulated influence. Here's the scenario. Khamenei dies. Chaos threatens. The Assembly of Experts is deadlocked. Then a consensus mysteriously emerges. They'll find religious justification. The prophet's grandson inherited spiritual authority. Leadership runs in. Blessed bloodlines. Iranian clerics can justify anything if they need to, but there'll be massive pushback. Many Iranians already hate the regime. Making it a hereditary dictatorship? That could trigger protests. Even some hardliners are uncomfortable. Iran's revolution was supposed to overthrow monarchy. Installing the supreme leader's son? That's exactly what they claimed to oppose in 1979. They'll handle it the way they handle everything: propaganda and brutality. State TV will show Mojtaba as humble, pious, his father's spiritual heir. Massive billboards across Tehran. Friday prayer sermons praising him. And protesters? The IRGC will crush them. They've done it before in 2009, 2019, 2022. They'll do it again. For Iran? Continuity of oppression. Same system, new face. The corruption continues. The sanctions continue. The isolation continues. For the region? Probably status quo. Mojtaba would continue his father's policies. Fund militias, threaten Israel, oppose Saudi Arabia. Likelihood? 35%. It maintains the system's appearance while consolidating. Power, but it's risky. The dynastic succession might be the spark that finally ignites revolution. Which brings us to Scenario 3, Act 4. Scenario 3. The REVO in September 16th, 2022. A 22-year-old woman named Mahsa Amini is arrested by Iran's morality police for improperly wearing her hijab. 3 days later, she's dead. The government claims natural causes. Her family says she was beaten. What happens next shocks the regime. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians, mostly young people, mostly women, pour into the streets. They're not just protesting her death. They're protesting everything. 43. Years of theocratic dictatorship. Women burn hijabs, cut their hair, chant woman, life, freedom. The protests last for months. The regime cracks down. Over 500 people killed, thousands arrested, many tortured, many executed. The protests eventually die down. But the anger DOESN single quotes T. And when Khamenei dies, that anger explodes. Scenario visualization. Here's how it could happen. News breaks. Khamenei is dead. Within hours, people gather in Tehran. Then thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. This time, they're not protesting specific policies. They're demanding the entire system end. Death to the dictator becomes death to the Islamic Republic. The Revolutionary Guard deploys. But this time, something's different. Some soldiers refuse to shoot. Some defect. The IRGC is powerful, but it's only about 150,000 soldiers. If millions of Iranians take to the streets simultaneously, protesters storm government buildings. The regime is, and the streets are exploding. Iran's neighbors watch nervously. Saudi Arabia debates intervention to prevent chaos on their border. Israel considers airstrikes on nuclear facilities, while Iran is distracted. Either freedom or bloodbath. A successful revolution could bring democracy, women's rights, normalized relations with the West, or it could bring civil war and fragmentation. For the region, total chaos. And funding. Syria's Assad regime might collapse without Iranian support. Israel and Saudi Arabia would cheer, but they'd also worry about Iran's nuclear materials falling into unknown hands. For the world, a humanitarian crisis, millions of refugees, oil prices spiking, nuclear uncertainty, likelihood 25%. But Khamenei's death removes the regime's ideological center. Without him, the system might just collapse. But there's a fourth scenario. The darkest one. Act 5, Scenario 4. The civil double hour. Here's what most people don't know about Iran. It's not ethnically unified. Only 60% are Persian. The rest, Azeris in the northwest, Kurds in the west, Arabs in the southwest, Balak in the southeast, Turkmen in the north. For decades, the Islamic Republic held these groups together. Those fractures could split wide open. Here's the nightmare scenario. Khamenei dies. The IRGC moves to install Mojtaba or take power directly. But in Tabriz, Azerbaijan separatists see their chance. In Kurdistan, Kurdish groups that have been fighting Iran for decades mobilize. Conflicts simultaneously. Suddenly, Iran isn't having one crisis. It's having 5. Central government versus protesters. Persian nationalists versus ethnic minorities. Old regime loyalists versus revolutionaries. Regional. Powers intervene. This is when it gets really dangerous. Turkey might support Azeri separatists. Iraqi Kurds might help Iranian Kurds. Saudi Arabia might arm Arab separatists in Khuzestan. Foreign intervention. Nobody clearly winning. Just destruction and chaos. Except Iran has ballistic missiles, chemical weapons capabilities, and enough enriched uranium to build nuclear weapons within months. In a civil war scenario, who controls those weapons? Does the IRGC keep them? Do they get seized by protesters? 88 million Iranians. If even 10% flee civil war, that's 9 million refugees pouring into Turkey, Pakistan, and the Gulf states. And if Iran truly collapses, Saudi Arabia and Israel might see it as the moment to destroy Iranian proxies forever. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, Iraqi militias, the entire Middle East could go up in flames. Likelihood? Low, maybe 15%, but the consequences would be catastrophic. This is the scenario that keeps intelligence analysts awake at night. Act 6. What's really going to happen and so what actually happens? Truth is, nobody knows. The CIA, not Mossad. Not even people inside Iran's government. But here's what we can predict most likely. 60% chance. The system survives. Either Mojtaba Khamenei takes over with IRGC backing, or the IRGC just rules directly through. A figurehead cleric. There are protests, but they're crushed. The Islamic Republic continues, maybe slightly more military, slightly more brutal, but fundamentally the same. Second most likely, 25%, extended chaos and power struggle. No clear successor emerges immediately. Various factions fight for months. Eventually, someone consolidates power, but Iran is weakened, isolated, and unstable. Least likely but possible. 15%, regime collapse. Mass protests succeed. The Islamic Republic falls. What replaces it? Democracy? Military rule? Chaos? Nobody knows. But here's what's already happening. Right now, while Khamenei is still alive, the IRGC is positioning key loyalists in critical positions. Mojtaba is building alliances. Reformists are being arrested preemptively. The regime is preparing for succession. Regional powers are preparing too. Israel has contingency plans for striking Iran during chaos. Saudi Arabia is securing its border. The U.S. has special forces ready for potential rescue missions if American citizens are trapped. And the Iranian people? Young Iranians, who make up most of the population, are watching, waiting. They've lost faith in reform. They want the entire system gone. And Khamenei's death might be their moment. When does it happen? Could be tomorrow. Could be next year. Could be 5 years from now. But Khamenei is 85 and sick. It's coming. And when it does, we'll find out which scenario plays out. The military takeover, the dynasty, the revolution, or the civil war. Sion Son for 43 years, the Islamic Republic has survived. Revolution, war with Iraq, sanctions, protests, internal power struggles. It's proven surprisingly resilient, but every system has a breaking point. And Khamenei's death might be Iran's. One man's death could reshape the entire Middle East, could trigger revolution or civil war, could lead to democracy or military dictatorship, could cause a humanitarian disaster or bring peace. 80-8 million people's futures hang in the balance. Regional stability depends on what happens next. Nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles are in play. The clock is ticking. Intelligence agencies are watching. Regional powers are preparing. The Iranian people are waiting. What happens after Khamenei dies? Soon, we won't be speculating. We'll be watching it unfold live. This is the biggest geopolitical crisis that hasn't happened yet. But it's coming. If you want to understand what's about to shake the Middle East, share this video. Subscribe for updates when this actually happens, because it will happen. The only question is when.